The Semovente .Da-75/18 was an Italian self-propelled gun of the Second World War. It was built by mounting the 75mm Obice Da-75/18 modello 34 mountain gun on the chassis of a M13, 40, M14, 41 or M15, 42 tank. The first 60 were built using the M13, 40 chassis, and a subsequent 162 were built on the M14, 41 chassis from 1941 to 1943, when the M15, 43 chassis were introduced. The Semovente Da-75/18 was intended to be an interim vehicle until the heavier P-40 tank could be available. History: Italian artillery colonel Sergio Burles, who also designed the Obice Da-75/18 modello 34, suggested that Italy create an armored fighting vehicle similar to the German StG-3, which had been successful in the French campaign. The first prototype was quickly assembled and delivered on February 10, 1941, only 13 months after the first M13, 40 tank upon which it was based. After that, 60 more examples were ordered. They were delivered in 1941, and were then shipped to North Africa in January 1942. This initial batch was based on the M13 chassis, with its weak 125 horsepower engine design. This self-propelled gun was built with riveted steel plates, which were thicker but also less sloped than in the original tank. Frontal armor was almost vertical, but it consisted of two plates that strengthened it when compared to a simple homogeneous steel plate. The vehicle had its crew compartment and drive section forward in a large and low casemate. The engine was situated behind it, in a separate structure, which was sloped and somewhat smaller, and had inspection panels on the roof. The chassis was identical to that of M13, 40 tanks, with 8 small wheels in 4 trolleys which were joined in pairs by 2 arms. Suspensions were of the leaf spring type, which was reliable but didn't allow for high speeds. The transmission was located in the forward part of the vehicle, and the crew consisted of only 3 members: driver, loader, radio operator, and tank commander, gunner. The main gun was a derivative of a 75mm L-18 gun, itself a quite modern divisional artillery piece. It was 18 calibers long, with 40 degrees transverse and -12 plus 22 degrees elevation. The gun had a muzzle brake, and there were several observation and aiming systems for the crew. The low muzzle velocity meant a relative short range, 9,500 meters at best elevation of 45 degrees, but the installation allowed only 22 degrees, and so the range was limited to around 7 to 8 kilometers. The range in direct fire mode was also limited, especially against moving targets. For the same reason, only one roof-mounted machine gun was fitted for close defense, though sometimes it was omitted. Initially this was a 6.5mm breeder, later upgraded to an 18mm model. Ammunition load was typically 44 75mm shells and 1,108 18mm cartridges, quite low by contemporary self-propelled gun standards, even though in the North African theatre some crews used to store some 100 shells by removing the seats and filling the space with the extra rounds. A model RF-1CA with interphone radio was usually fitted. Service: although these machines were not widely known, the vehicle performed well in its role. Though it was technically similar to the StG-3, it had a totally different role, serving as divisional artillery instead of a pure assault gun. The organic structure consisted of 2 artillery groups for every armored division, with 2 batteries each. The total was of 18 75mm L-18 and 9 command vehicles. vehicles, which were characterized by additional radio equipment and a breeder 13.2 mm heavy machine gun mounted instead of the main gun. The number originally ordered, 60 total, was enough from the 3 armored divisions. The Semovente Da 75 18th SS were deployed in the North African campaign and during the Allied invasion of Sicily, alongside tank units to provide additional firepower. Despite the fact that they were not designed to fight other tanks, the 75 mm howitzer proved ideal for firing heat shells. Its 5.2 kg heat shell could pierce 80 mm of armor at 500 meters, thus being able to defeat tanks such as the US-built M3 Grant and M4 Sherman used by the British Army. As such, these machines were responsible for many of the successes by the Italian armored troops during 1942–43, when the medium tanks could no longer be competitive. The most successful action fought by Semovente Da 75 18th took place on the 10th of June 1942, south of Knightsbridge, during the Battle of Gazala. 30 M3 Grant and 10 M3 Stuart of 1st and 6th Royal Tank Regiment attacked a position held by the Ariete Division but were repelled by Semovente Da 75 18th SS as well as some M13 40s and gun trucks, losing 3 Grants and 2 Stuarts from 6th Royal Tank Regiment and 12 Grants and 3 Stuarts from 1st Royal Tank Regiment. The Italians lost 2 M13 40s. Despite its limitations, the Semovente Da 75 18th proved successful both in the direct support role and in anti-tank fighting. Its main advantages, other than the sheer firepower, was in its thicker armor and lower silhouette that made it more difficult to hit. Due to these features, the Semovente Da 75 18th has been regarded as the sole amongst all Italian armored fighting vehicles to be seriously feared by Allied tankers. And despite it was originally conceived for a totally different role, the 75 18th often ended up replacing the standard M13 40. However, as it was never deployed en masse, the scarce number of Semovente on the field wasn't enough to turn the tide in Italy's favor. In 1942, more vehicles were built. 162, all with the M41 hull, recognizable by the all-length fenders. In 1943, production shifted to the M42 variant, with the M15 42 tank chassis and engine. It was also decided to address the shortcomings of the M14 41 tank by bolstering each unit with some Semovente, even outside the 3 armored divisions fielded, even though very few Italian divisions actually received any. The necessity for a longer and more powerful gun led to the development of the 75 34ths, 75 46ths and 105 25ths self-propelled guns. German use. After the Italian surrender in 1943, some 131 Semovente Da 75 18ths were seized by the Germans and the production of another 55 was authorized. They were issued to 6 infantry divisions, 2 panzer divisions, 3 panzer grenadier divisions, 22 SS Volunteer Cavalry Division Maria Theresa and 1 Gebirgs Division intended for service in Italy and the Balkans. They were designated Stug M42 MIT-7, 5 KWKL-18. Surviving vehicles. A number of 75 18ths still survives today. Those include, listed by variants, AM40, now at the Aberdeen Proving Ground. A damaged M40 is exhibited at the El Alamein Military Museum. AM40 or M41, exhibited at the Musée des Blindés, Saumur. AM41, which was recovered after the war and served in the post-war Italian army with limited modifications. It is now stored at the Historical Museum of Military Motorization, Cecchignola. AM41, like the Roman one, this 75/18 was employed by the post-war Italian army. Restored in 2005 by the Otto Melara, it is now housed in this company's museum at La Spezia. AM41 at the Scuola Tropicorazza, Caserta. AM42 at the Reggimento Artiglieria a Cavallo, Milan. AM42 with a dummy gun is located at the Rocca di Bergamo. A Stug M42, numbered 114, was built under German control in early 1944. On the 21st of September, after a battle near Rimini, it was abandoned into a crater. It was rediscovered and unearthed in 2000, and restored by the Museo dell'Aviazione at Rimini, where it is now exhibited since 2004. An unspecified 75/18 is mentioned to be at Nocera Inferior.